School and college university basketball star, starting point guard. She turned pro after college. She turned pro in cross-country mountain biking and also cyclocross. She is an ultra runner, which means that she runs 32 miles or more in races. She's an avid skier, hiker, and all-around outdoors woman. So it was fairly perplexing when about 2.5 years ago you started experiencing some scary and odd symptoms. And I should mention that you had just had your first child, a baby girl, and she was about 7-8 months.
Yep, 8 months.
When this all started going down. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about what was going on and what you were thinking was happening.
Yeah, so I was at the gym one day, had a typical workout. As I was driving home, I noticed that my vision was off a little bit and kind of wondered what it was. And by the time I got home and asked my husband to look at my eyes, I realized that one pupil was really dilated and the other was really small. And given my medical background, I knew something was wrong. So
you're a physician's assistant, so you're pretty well versed in
medical
lingo.
The first thought that came to my mind was I was having a stroke, but I didn't have any other symptoms other than my vision was off. So we ended up getting to an Instacare after my husband really pushed that we needed to go to the ER. I would refuse to go to the ER, so we went to an Instacare, urgent care. And as I was checking in, my vision returned to normal. And the physician I saw there was kind of perplexed as well. She thought, well, maybe it was a migraine variant or maybe it was total fluke. We didn't really know, but she said, you know, if your symptoms persist, then we should probably do some CT or MRI of your brain. So the symptoms persisted and I tried to suppress it a little bit, didn't really tell my husband.
And they were persisting as you were
exercising,
exerting yourself, those types of
if
things.
I wasn't exercising, I had no symptoms whatsoever, but every time I would go for a run or go to the gym, same symptoms would happen. So finally, after almost a month, I told my husband, hey, these symptoms are still happening, we probably need to do something. So I called that physician back who I have known just through practicing medicine, and so I called her and she said, yeah, let's get you in right away. So within a couple of days I was having a CT scan of my head. And I left the hospital and thought, oh, who knows what this is going to be. And they called me back on my way home from the hospital and said, you need to come back for more images. So I knew something was wrong. They'd found something. And sure enough, within about 24 hours, I knew I had a tumor.
And this was a pretty unique, a very rare and extreme tumor, the type of cancer that it is, and also the location. So explain a little bit about where it is and what makes it so dangerous.
So the type of tumor I have is called Adenoid Cystic Carcinoma. It generally stems from salivary glands. So most people get it in one of their major salivary glands, and it's easy to resect, and when you resect it, it's curable. Mine is in my posterior nasopharynx, so that means it's where your throat and the back of your nose kind of come together. It started in a minuscule little salivary gland there and kind of grew back towards my brainstem, and even though it was very small, it had started to eat away the base of my skull. By the time I had more imaging and biopsy and everything, and PET scan, they realized that this was really close to my optic nerve, it was really close to my brainstem. It kind of even had this little arm that was kind of shooting down towards my carotid artery.
And that's why you were having the blurred vision?
Yeah, so they thought every time my blood pressure or my intracranial pressure rose, that it was either pressing on a cranial nerve, and that was causing my pupils to have those changes. Even multiple physicians that I saw, they all were a little bit surprised that I had the symptoms that I did, and most people asked, how did you even know something was wrong? So yeah, no surgeon was willing to touch it because of the location and the proximity to some of these other really vital organs.
And these are local universities at this point?
Well, so
or hospitals,
yeah,
I should say.
I went to my local hospital there, and then went to Huntsman Cancer Institute there, which we're really lucky to have here close. And then I proceeded to go to San Francisco and down to MD Anderson in Houston to just try and find as many answers as I could.
Mm-hmm. So you're faced with this tumor, and they're trying to figure out how to treat it. Talk about surgery was not really an option because of the high risks of
stroke, blindness, paralysis. I had one surgeon in San Francisco tell me if I really wanted to go for it, he would be willing to try, but the chances of me making it through surgery were very slim, and even if I did make it through surgery, the chance that I would have a very life-changing side effect of the surgery was real. And given my lifestyle, I just did not want to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. So.
And you're super young. I mean, you're 33, you have a 8-month-old.
Yeah.
This is pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
So so the choices are, you really have to go down to MD Anderson in Houston.
Yeah, so every physician that I saw, the one question that I would ask is if it were you, where would you have treatment? And it was unanimous. Everybody said MD Anderson. They see the most rare cancers. They have the most money for research. It's a huge center. It's world renowned. People come from all over the world to have cancer treatment there. And oddly, one of the physicians at the University of Utah and Huntsman handed me a paper when I was there and said, hey, this was written at MD Anderson. It's a really small study, but it's your exact cancer and that location in inoperable cases. Maybe you ought to check it out. And so when I went down to MD Anderson, they kind of told me about the study that they had done and some of the outcomes. And there are very few places in the country that have this proton therapy, and MD Anderson is one of them. And that was the treatment modality that they were using in this study. And so that pretty much made up my mind. Most of the other places said, we'll do our best with traditional external beam radiation, and hopefully we can get a few good years out of you. But when I went to MD Anderson, they said, you're young, you're otherwise healthy, we're going to put all of our eggs in one basket and give you as much radiation and chemo as you can take, and hopefully it's more of a cure versus just a few good years.
So let's just back up a little bit. You believe, or the doctors believe, that this tumor had been growing for many years, and what basically triggered it?
So it's adenoid cystic carcinoma is a very slow growing tumor. They thought I had it probably for years, maybe since childhood. And when I was pregnant, the hormonal changes they thought maybe stimulated the tumor to grow a little bit faster. And like I said before, it was a really small tumor, but because there's not a lot of space for external things in your head and neck, as soon as it got beyond, just a couple of centimeters, it started causing the symptoms. Mm-hmm.
So having more children out of the question.
Yeah.
Basically to preserve your life, that is the option. But you have your healthy baby girl.
Yep.
She's 3.
Yep.
So going back about 2.5 years, you make the decision to go to Houston, pack your bags, you go. Tell us about the treatment that you went through and how long you were there, what you had to do.
So I had 33 radiation treatments, so Monday through Friday I would go and have this proton therapy, and then once a week I would have chemotherapy, so I got 7 rounds of chemotherapy. I started treatment right at the beginning of December, so we had to get through Christmas and New Year, so that kind of stretched my therapy out a little bit longer. So the radiation, it's pretty standard for head and neck. They pretty much nail you to a bed. You have a mask that's made out of plastic that they literally heat up and mold to your head, and that kind of clips into a bed that you're laying on. And so my mask started here at my shoulders and was molded all along my neck, all the way over my head. And then in order to preserve my tongue and teeth, I had to wear a mouth guard that then clipped into the mask. So you can't talk, it's so tight you can barely even blink your eyes.
And how long are you in this
That's
contraption?
depended. The way proton therapy works is there can only be one proton beam going at one time, but they have 3 rooms set up so that they can try and get as many patients in as possible. So while you're being set up, somebody else is getting their treatment, and they reposition you so they can hit the tumor from different directions. So they can tilt the bed and move the radiation apparatus completely around you to make this pinpoint precision just perfect. So as they are repositioning you, then the proton beam goes to the next patient. So there's somebody always getting this proton therapy. So on a good day, I was in the mask for 20 minutes. On a bad day, like 45 minutes. So, and you can't talk, obviously. They can talk to you, but if you have a problem, you basically had to like raise your leg up, and for me, because it came down to my shoulders, I couldn't move my arms real well. So on the days when you're nauseated from your chemo, it makes it a little bit tough. The first treatment I had, I was really, really nauseated, and I really thought, you know, if I vomit, I'm going to aspirate this all back in. And they deal with that on a daily basis, so they basically just tell you, if you're feeling sick, just raise your knees up and we'll turn off the beam. The problem is by the time they turn off the beam and then open the radiation safe doors, I mean, it's a couple minutes, right? So it's definitely a scary thing. And the radiation beam causes your brain to send all these random signals. So some people see things, you smell things, you taste things. So I always saw these purple flashing lights. I would have this awful taste in my mouth. So I would chew mints or gum before I went in to try and suppress that taste and smell a little bit. Yeah. And then chemo just once a week that was trying to target the tumor a little bit differently in the traditional sense. You know, most cancers are real rapid growing, and that's how the chemo attacks it. But because this is a slow growing tumor, the chemo's job was to just kind of break down the tumor to make it a little more susceptible so that the radiation could kill the tumor, basically.
Mm-hmm. So. Direct hit. Mm-hmm. So what was your mindset going into moving down to Houston? I mean, we talk about the game face because we're athletes, and that's really what you had to go on. Yeah. I mean, can you elaborate a little bit on that? I mean, obviously you have a lot to live for. You have a baby girl that needs you, a husband that loves you, family that loves you. I'm
your mindset? Very competitive person. There's no doubt about that, and that's kind of, you know, the way I looked at it. It's just like any other competitor. And, you know, when you really consider what your other options were, this is your best bet. You're really just relying on these doctors that they know what they're doing, and they're going to do everything they can for you. And so you kind of have to play your part too. You've got to be all in and believe that it's going to work, and just try and focus your energy about treatment and not let anything else really come in.
One of the things that you had mentioned earlier to me was, not today, but at another time, was that you had said the treatment of MD Anderson, they were extremely compassionate going into it, but then once the treatment started and you were violently sick from the chemo, worse than you had ever could imagine. They were pretty tough. And
that first chemo session, I thought, oh, this isn't too bad. And then on day 2, it really took hold, and I was vomiting so weak. I couldn't even sit up to vomit. I was literally just like rolling over to the side of the bed to vomit. And I told my mom, who was there taking care of me throughout this whole process, I said, you're gonna have to call him and tell him I'm not gonna make it today. So she's, you know, okay, I'll call. And the radiation tech that she spoke to was basically like, you can't miss. That's not an option. You got to figure it out. She's got to be here. Like, they basically laughed at her when she said that we weren't going to make it. So I had to call my medical oncologist, and he knew I, you know, was a PA, and so he spoke to me really like a colleague more than a patient, which I appreciated sometimes. Sometimes you kind of wanted to be the patient, but sometimes it was kind of nice, you know. And he said, listen, how bad are you? Can you really not come? I said, really, I don't think I can stand up. I might pass out. And he said, well, go get some, send your mom to the pharmacy. I'll have some steroids there. You've got about 3 hours. You got to figure it out. You cannot miss.
Wow.
So it was just kind of one of those things, you know, kind of just going back to that athlete mentality, like, that's what you got to get done. Okay, here we go, you know.
I mean, you were literally in the fight of your life on so many different levels. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing.
Yeah, you think you're a pretty tough person. I thought I was a pretty tough person. And then you're put in that situation where it's every ounce of physical, emotional, mental energy that you have is just tapped to the extreme. Mm-hmm. So,
and talk to me a bit about the support, because I thought there was some really cool stories with your mom and her work.
Yeah.
Stories with the alumni that we have with the University of Utah, and other friends that stepped up. So
yeah,
because I know that helped you get through those really dark days.
Even now, well, one of the things I've taken away from this experience big time is, you know, surround yourself with your tribe or your people. It's just invaluable, I think. And it was really surprising, some of the people that were really kind of highlights throughout this, you know, people who were unexpected. I mean, you have those close friends and family that you know are going to be there, and it's kind of an expectation, I think. But some random people that really, it made this experience just so much more, I think. And sometimes you don't appreciate it until well after. But yeah, my mom, who's a school teacher and has been for 30 years or so, decided maybe she'd take a sabbatical and come down and help me through this and help take care of my daughter. And when the word got around to her school, every teacher in her school donated one sick day from their own personal leave, and that way my mom didn't have to take a sabbatical. She had more than enough sick leave to be gone for those couple of months that we were down there. And you know, these people had never met me, but my mom is an amazing person, and they, you know, knew how much this was affecting her, and that was their one way that they could help. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, a former teammate of mine, Cammie, who, you know, we weren't necessarily particularly close when we were playing basketball, but yeah, we were teammates. We were all friends, you know, and she got all the alumni together, and they made these really amazing bracelets, and I spread like wildfire. It was really crazy, you know, just through social media, and anybody that was associated with the university women's basketball team, University of Utah women's basketball team, bought these and spread them out. And my family bought a whole bunch of them. My parents' friends were wearing them, and it was funny afterwards that some people who had no idea that I was a common friend of theirs, you know, they'd be at a function and they'd see the bracelet and they'd say, hey, wait, you know Kelsy? Wait, how do you know her? And so it just brought all these, you know, random people together, and I'll never forget the day that I found out that all these people were posting pictures of, you know, wearing these bracelets. And
yeah, we all posted on a certain day that you knew.
Yeah, you're already tapped out emotionally, and then something like that comes out. It's just, it kind of just, you know, like relights that fire, you know. It's just amazing how many people, where you think, you know, maybe it was just a short time in your life that you were friends or teammates or whatever, but for it to kind of come full circle is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, being part of that, there was a lot of energy and positiveness and love that was directed to you, and it was a neat experience to be a part of, and we just were rooting for you and kept you in our, you know, thoughts and prayers, and it was I was happy to see that it turned out really well, and it helped you get through just a horrible
absolutely
tough time.
Yeah.
So how has so 1 month ago today marked your 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So basically, you've gone through the testing. You went through the whole treatment, the 7 weeks. You've had some follow-up checkups. Basically, no growth.
Yeah.
So is it safe to say that the tumor is dormant?
Yeah.
It's not gone away. It's still there.
Yeah, it will never go away. You know, the only way to cure this cancer is to resect it. Still, you know, the ultimate goal is that it stays dormant forever.
Yeah.
And in this study that I mentioned before down at MD Anderson, you know, they don't have a lot of data long term yet because the study is fairly new. But in the short term, the survival rate with these people has been very good. And, you know, I haven't really seen any follow-up data in the last couple of years since I originally learned of the study. But, yeah, I still have been going down every 3 months and having scans, CT scans. What they're doing, or MRIs, I'm sorry, what they're doing is looking at the size and shape of the tumor, that if it's changing at all, that would indicate that the tumor is growing again. The problem is it grows so small that, or it grows so slowly that, and the tumor is so small that it's really hard to detect anything. And it's kind of a catch-22 a little bit, because every time you have one of those images, you're being exposed to more radiation, and you know, that's not necessarily a great thing either.
So we're just going to keep knowing that it's going to just stay dormant. I mean, just that's your mental.
Yeah.
Just stay healthy, live your life to the fullest.
Mm-hmm. You
just live with it every day. It's a awful reminder, but a beautiful reminder that life is short.
Yep.
So how has your life changed from what it was before to what it is now?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that, and it took a while to get there, you know, I mean, afterwards, sometimes you just didn't really grasp what you have gone through. But now, having been out for a couple of years, I think the biggest lesson that we've learned really as a family, or especially my husband and I, is just simplify, you know, really. We got rid of a lot of materialistic things that we thought were making us happy. But, you know, really what makes us happy is being in the mountains and traveling. And so we got rid of a lot of those other things, you know, houses and cars and things that we thought were making us happy. But
I mean, you literally sold your big house.
Yep.
And downsized to a pretty small house near the mountains, near some trails.
Yep, I can run from my doorstep to the trailhead, which I do most mornings, and my husband is a mountain biker, and so he can, you know, go right from there. We always laugh at the mountains. We're right there, and Quinn, my daughter, calls them our mountains, and so, you know, we watch the moon come up over those mountains, and we're kind of up on the foothills, so we can see the sunsets, and we always talk about that. We'll, you know, take her outside and hopefully teach her to appreciate those cool things. You know, the other night it was a full moon, and we went out and sat on the front porch and watched the sunrise over our mountains, you know, and those are kind of the things that you just take for granted, or you don't really appreciate before. And it's amazing, you know. Sometimes I'm out for a run in the morning, and the sun's coming up over those mountains, and I just take a minute, you know, to appreciate it. Or, you know, it sounds very cliche, but it really, you're more appreciative of such small little moments, and spending time with your family and friends where, you know, just you're not celebrating anything, or you're just there together and having a good time. Like, those moments are actually really special.
Yeah.
So
A lesson for all of us, really.
Yeah.
So, so what do you hope for? What are your goals going forward?
Well, I mean, to stay healthy is always my number one goal. The problem with that is you have little control over that, in my opinion. But, you know, I am very cognizant as far as trying to stay healthy, you know, setting myself up for success. So, you know, staying active and eating the things that are good, and, you know, just being really cognizant of just making sure that I didn't do anything to promote this cancer to come back. So,
and your 8 hours of sleep.
Oh yeah, sleep. That is another thing I learned. Sleep is, you know, I feel like you get kind of caught up in the minutia of things a lot, and you just forget how important sleep is. Every night, I'm an 8 to 9 hour a night. I put my daughter to bed, and I am right behind her, and my husband makes fun of me all the time, calls me an old lady, but I just feel like it's super important piece of recovery. And, you know, the activities that I'm involved in with, you know, running and fairly stressful job and things like that, there's just no substitute for a good night's sleep. And so yeah, that's a big lesson learned too.
Yeah.
Take time to recover. The things that you're staying up for can wait. You know, that last load of laundry or whatever that is easy to just stay up for. Just go to sleep. It'll be there in the morning.
Yep.
So,
well, I think that you are an incredible woman of perseverance and
thank you.
A woman of character and integrity and authenticity.
Thank you.
And I think as I'm getting older, that's who I'm gravitating towards. And it's just such an amazing story that you have, and a journey that you're on, and a lesson for all of us that, you know, taking care of ourselves, appreciating every moment.
Yeah.
They don't have to be these spectacular vacations
Yes.
or trips. It's just, just the little things.
And I think it's human nature to, you know, sometimes get lost in that or find the negative things. And I'm not perfect at any of those things. I'm in medicine, you practice medicine. I feel like life is the same way. You know, you think things are working the right way, but until you find a different way or a better way, then, you know, you just have to remind yourself. And I fail at it sometimes too, a lot. More than I would like to, but just every day finding the simple things and looking forward to what tomorrow might bring.
That is our hope.
Yeah.
We hope for a new day and a better day, and there's lessons along the way. So bumps, bruises, and blessings.
That's right.
As a wise person once said. So, well, Kelsy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Your story is inspiring. It's uplifting and it's encouraging, and I am so thankful for you, and I'm blessed to have called you my friend.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely.
All right.